Welcome to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. I'm your host, Julie Starke, and I'm thrilled to have Christina Grozik with us today. Christina has a vast background in the media production industry as a travel blogger, a public speaker, an event planner, and most recently, the producer of Going Om, a documentary that explores the relationship between sound and wellness. Christina has brought all this vast experience into an integrative health coaching practice where she uses sound therapy, meditation, yoga, Reiki, regression, and so much more. I'm thrilled to have Christina with us today, live and in person. All right, welcome, Christina. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I've looked forward to this.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. It's nice to connect with you.
I feel like we have so much in common beyond heartstones and leaving work that was philosophically different than the way we wanted to live. I feel like this idea of dwelling in possibility is something that's really resonant in both of our lives. And I feel like you have really created a life that you love. So that's hard for people, I think. Change is really hard for people. So the ability to do that is a real asset. Shaping your life to be a constant reflection of who you are, I think takes great awareness and talent. So I commend you for living this life. I've followed your path and it's just really exciting. I know that you were here at the A.R.E this past weekend teaching on signs and energy and sound. And so I'd like to dive into those subjects today and talk to you about specifically signs that you used to create this life that you wanted to live and recognized along the way, particularly as it relates to nature, because I think that's a really big component of that type of lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when we start practicing presence and we let go, and it's always a practice, and like you were talking about, the opportunity, right? So I think very much every morning I talk about, or I think and say to myself about everything is a blessing, whether it's a lesson or a blessing, right? Because they're both blessings when we can grow and learn from them.
Right.
So funny, I was telling you this before, yesterday I'm staying at a hotel here while I'm in town visiting, and I said to myself, I need to balance more. I need to exercise more. I want to go out and explore more and just take some quiet time because I'm working so much, even from the hotel. And I made that out there. I made that, I put that into the universe, and this morning there was no electricity in the hotel. So I was like, oh, hey, exactly what I said yesterday. Yes, the universe is saying, here you go. So yeah, I got up, I explored, I'm staying on the top floor, so I had to go down all the flights of stairs, and I could feel it, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to come back up these two, but that's okay. This is what I asked for, and this is kind of a blessing. It's getting me going in the morning, it's like I'm moving things, there's energy flowing, and so it's funny the way things work out, so, and I had quite a nice adventure, like trying to find coffee this morning and a cafe, and met some lovely people there, so it's really interesting.
I think it's the Reverend Michael Beckwith that says life is always unfolding and you draw the life force of energy to you, right? So in that vein, be careful what you're thinking because it's going to show up, as we were talking earlier as well about being very specific about those thoughts. So talk to me about how we recognize signs. Like I call it Hansel and Greteling in my own life. Everything from a soup can to a squirrel to a license plate can lead me down a path maybe unexpectedly, but I pay a lot of attention. And I know that nature plays a big part of that in your life and the way that it's unfolded. Can you expand upon that and how we recognize that?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't want to tell anybody this is what it's going to be for you, because I think it's different for everyone, and a lot of times it's what you recognize and resonate with. So for me, I'm very attuned and connected to nature and to animals. Even as a child, I always wanted to be around animals and be part of nature. So I think signs can come in so many different ways, so many different ways. And I think, you know, in teaching synchronicity and having taught it for quite some time now, you know, people will often say, you know, I really thought I was going to have this sign and I was convinced it was coming in this form. And I think sometimes we get in our own ways along that journey because we have these expectations of this is what it needs to be. And it's not always that. You know, so often you'll see somebody asking for a sign and it's right in front of them, like this billboard size sign, sometimes literally a billboard. And they're so busy saying, well, you know, if only I had a sign. I don't understand why I don't have a sign. How am I going to get a sign? What I keep asking. Well, you know, maybe it's changing your perspective on things. Maybe it's opening up to new opportunities that come your way, or sometimes it's going outside of your comfort zone. You know, people often want change. People want change, but they don't want to do the work sometimes, right?
Right.
And it can be scary. It can be so scary to go outside of your comfort zone. But when we do, sometimes that's when the most growth happens, you know, or when we are open to a challenging situation. You know, this past year has been a very interesting time for so many people. Very interesting time. And I've fielded calls from all ends of the spectrum on it, and some people taking this time to reevaluate the way they're doing things and maybe finding new ways of doing things, to people that, you know, absolutely just kind of closed down and turned off and said, you know, I just want it to go back to normal, and not maybe recognizing that this could be an opportunity for growth on some level, you know.
Right, and what is normal? What is normal? And was a change needed, you know? So I think you're right. I think oftentimes those signs are right in front of us and we don't always recognize them. But that really just, you know, calls us to be more open-hearted, right? Which is, I think, also something we need to recognize in the world, particularly at this time, is to be open-hearted and pay attention to those things along the way. I always think about in my own career, goal setting, right? Like, I was never a real goal setter, which people would be like, oh, what do you mean you don't have a goal? It's not that I'm not striving for things. I have a vision of what I want my life to feel like, right? Maybe not necessarily what I want it to look like, because I base a lot of life on feeling, but what I want it to feel like. And then I detach from the outcome and allow the magic to kind of come in, right? Because the universe holds your hand, I think, right? And is always sending you little promptings along the way to keep you moving. You know, Edgar Cayce really felt that nature was this spirit of creation emanating into life, and that you could gain so much knowledge from it. And he really talked about that in a lot of his readings. I'm sure you're familiar with those. And I think you have a special relationship with wolves, am I correct?
I do, yeah. I've always been very drawn to them, and you know, I think there was a period of time where I was traveling a lot for 7 years, and I was working a lot too. So a lot of people are like, well, you're so lucky, all you had to do was go travel. But that's not quite the way it looked. You know, I was working very long hours, at least 5 days a week, sometimes more. But on those off days, I would maximize my time, and I would go out and, you know, go see things, spend time in nature, you know, talk to people, things of that nature. And in that period, you know, you kind of wonder, like, well, I wonder what that animal is for me. And in that period, it very, very clearly came into focus through a series of people that I had met, that none of them were connected. None of them were connected. They were in different cities, different states. In a very short period of time, I had several encounters with people. And I've always had these kind of encounters with people where, you know, sometimes my friends are like, okay, when we go out, do not make eye contact with anyone. Do not talk to anybody. Because if there's 500 people in the room, I will be the person that someone comes up and says what appears to be random, you know, but I'm always open to it. I'm always open to it. I want to hear, like, you know, what do you have? Tell me.
Well, again, you're drawing the life force to you, right? I mean, that's what happens. I love it.
Yeah, we're all connected, you know?
And that energy, you know, that you're talking about, we all know that, you know, there's energy. I'm putting out energy, you're giving out energy, there's energy all around us, right? Life is a building block of energy.
Yeah.
And you talk about in some of your presentations about thoughts, words, actions, and each one of those things having a little bit of a different vibration. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that's, again, one of the things that we can use, a building block, if you will, to create the life we want.
Yeah, I think, you know, everything is energy, like you had just said, and when we recognize that, it's all energy, right? And there's these different vibrations that we're emitting and that we're taking in. So we're almost like these receivers, like these towers where we're taking in energy and we're putting out energy. And when we are doing that at a higher vibratory state, we're going to attract different things than we would if you're the person that every time someone says like, hey, how's it going? And you're like, ugh, it's going. Everyone's got those days. Everyone has those days, right? We've all been there. But when it becomes consistent, then you're patterning. You are starting a vibratory pattern that it's hard to break out of, because then that's what you're going to start attracting. You are going to start attracting that kind of energy. Now, with that being said, there are periods of time that people go through that are very challenging, right? We've probably all been there, maybe not. But those times you can say like, am I attracting this? Maybe you're not attracting it during that period, but there is a lesson that needs to be learned to allow you to grow. So it could have a series of events that appear to be very, very challenging for you. And when you can change the lens that you're seeing it, and you keep your thoughts, your words, your actions in a higher vibratory state, then you are maybe speeding up the outcome of these lessons and this growth period for you when you are rooted in gratitude, because you wouldn't never have chosen this to happen to you, although it is happening to you. So you can either say, wow, this is horrible. Like, why is this happening to me? Or you can say, you know, I'm not sure what the plan is here. I don't know why this is happening to me, but I know there's a plan. And I am grateful for whatever the outcome is, and I am trusting my journey with you. Because we are co-creators. We're co-creators of our world and then the world that we all share together. We are feeding into that collective consciousness, that web that we all share. And I think Edgar Cayce, I don't remember the exact quote, but I think he said something to the effect of, when we pray to God, when we pray, we are sending what we want, and when we meditate, we are listening.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
it's something like that. That's not the exact wording, but I think that's so important to say, you know what, universe, I don't know what's going on, but I am praying to you to show me the eyes to see this, right? To be open to it. And then I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to listen and wait for the answers and the direction.
Yeah, that's beautiful and really fascinating too. I often think of this in terms of like life events, and I'm not really fond of the everything happens for a reason. I feel like that's a little cliche, but I do feel that everything can be purposeful.
Yeah.
But you have to like sort of dive in there and say, what is the purpose? And it isn't always, when you're talking about the collective consciousness, it isn't always just about us. Like, we're here to support one another's journeys too. So this thing that may have happened that may be uncomfortable for me may really be there to aid you on your journey. So, right? So I need to hold the space. Like, I've got chills all over. It's so great, right? Right? So that give and take and that service of one another, I think is, you know, huge. So we could talk, each one of these subjects, we could go deep diving into rabbit hole, but you are just such a wealth of knowledge and information. I don't want to leave this place without talking about sound, because I know that that is a really big part of where you've done a lot of your work of late, some of the gifts that you've brought to the world surrounding sound. And I think most profoundly, Edgar Cayce said, sound is the medicine of the future. I thought that was so huge, right? And I, for one, don't know a lot about how sound can transform us and heal us and guide us. So please tell us about sound, because this is your world.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and right back at you. Absolutely, we could definitely go much deeper
We
on
could.
all these topics.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was very warm when we sat down, but I have had goosebumps almost the entire time.
I love it.
So I'm like,
we're in the right space, right?
Yeah, it's like that space, and that's what it is, right? Accessing a space. And for me in my sound journey, I've always been very drawn to music. You know, I spent years, working as a DJ and music-oriented things. I was always doing something with sound or music of some nature. And when I got into, the journey in terms of studying different energy modalities, everyone would tell me, because I started with Kundalini Yoga, is that very first thing that I studied. And they would say, well, you need to meditate. You need to sit there. You need to sit and just allow silence and suspend thought. And I'm like, and I was trying so hard to do that. And I'm like, what is going, how are they doing this? So I would change, I burned incense, and I would change maybe I need to be in this kind of outfit instead, things of that nature. And it just didn't come. But I found a singing bowl, and I started playing the singing bowl. And when I played the singing bowl, what I found is that the whole, time would just go by. And it was like I had no concept of time because I wasn't thinking. And it was that moment I'm like, oh, this is what meditation is. This is it right here, because it's suspending thought. It's finding that space where we're just letting go, letting go. So I just wanted to learn everything I could about it, and I adopted gongs in my practice and other instruments, and started taking on clients and started teaching workshops. And then when I would see the transformations in other people, it is a certain space that it brings us to that kind of overrides our system, because we're trying so hard. And I think sometimes when we try so hard, we're almost putting up this resistance to allowing it to just happen. Right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it brought me there. It was a beautiful moment when I realized, why am I sleeping better? Why am I thinking so much clearly? Right? I'm so calm, and I'm naturally a pretty calm person. I'm the person in the room that if something goes awry, I'm the one that's like, okay, well, what are the possible solutions here? A, B, or C, and which one makes most sense? I'm that person, right? But it was a different kind of calm. It was a connection that's really hard to describe in words.
So that's what you mean when you say sound brings you to the silence. I was fascinated by that phrasing. And I really sat with it and thought about that, sound bringing you to the silence. And I couldn't really, in my thinking mind, grasp, what that was. But you just explained it so beautifully.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. I think a cornerstone of Casey's readings are based in meditation, right? I think I listened to a podcast you did recently where someone said that there were over 1,700 references to meditation. So this idea of silence is super important, kind of goes back to that open-heartedness that we were talking about, right? And he talks about, doing the meditations and bringing it up through your chakra system, right, in a cleansing way, and that you can become more intuitive. Y'all probably talked about this weekend, forgive me if I'm repeating things that people have heard, but this idea of sort of cleansing and opening the space. What is it about sound that does that, you think? Is it the vibration or the energy? I really just am curious about.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things that you can go into a room, right? And you're being impacted in some way. You either have maybe a positive feeling about the room, or maybe not such a positive feeling about the room. And it's like, this feels very warm and cozy and inviting, or there's something about this room that I don't really care for, and I want to get out of here as soon as I can. Same can go with people that we encounter.
Right.
There are certain people we're very drawn to, energetically speaking. There's just something about them. And then there's other people we're like, I am going to definitely get out of this area.
Right? Yeah. Yes.
So I think, sometimes we can't see why that is. We can't hear why that is, but we feel it because it's the vibration.
Right.
And the sound is the vibration that we can actually hear.
Oh,
So
I
the sound is
see.
the vibration
Oh,
we
good.
can hear.
That's good.
And certain
Yeah.
tones bring us to certain spaces, like certain levels of that, right? So if someone's very anxious, like a lot of times, play very low tones for them to bring
Right.
them down. It grounds us in a different way, or it can raise us in a certain way. The sound of our voice does that, you know?
Right.
The sound of our voice is very beneficial. Vocal toning and humming, you know, Jonathan Goldman's really big on humming. And, you know, when we do that, what we're doing is there's all these chemical reactions within the body. But think of it in terms of we are about 70 to 80% water, right?
Right.
And when you apply vibration to water, you can
Yeah.
physically see what happens to the water.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're doing the vocal toning within, you're creating a vibration. So I like to equate it like this, that we are rivers, right? We are rivers. When you think of your body as a stream, a river, and we go through life and things happen to us and we start collecting debris and we hold on to things that aren't serving us because, you know what? I am not going to forgive that person because they did this to me and I'm not going to let them have it. Well, I'll tell you what, the person you're really harming is yourself by holding on to it, right? Because you're creating some kind of energetic blockage in your system. And when a river or a stream has too much debris in it, what happens? It becomes stagnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that vibration can help to move out some of those energetic blockages
Fabulous.
and release it to allow the stream to flow, to allow the energy to move. So the voice, very, very powerful tool. When people come to different sound journeys that I put on, they'll say, well, I would love to do this, except for I don't have all these tools. I don't have the gongs, I don't have the singing bowls. And I tell them, you know what? Here's the thing is, you were speaking to me, you have the instrument of your voice
Right here.
and
That's
your
right.
breath. And allow that to take you to that space.
Like the sound of breath when you're trying to get into that space and you really do hear your breath. That's so beautiful. You know, when I knew that I was going to be speaking with you, I got all of these signs related to alchemy. Right? I don't know if you've ever read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, but it's one of my favorites and it's, you know, a classic now. But there were many, many signs about that. And that idea of transmuting something into something else, right? It's typically metal to gold, but it can be your life or your day, or, you know, we can be alchemists of our own lives. And, you know, we've all come through this, like, eventually we'll stop talking about it, but for right now it's a very, very real thing that we've come through this, like, almost 2-year little wobble of life. And I think there are a lot of people that coming back into the world is traumatic in some ways or uncomfortable. And to use the sound metaphor, it can be cacophonous, right? Like too much coming at us. So in the spirit of alchemy, like, how can people use sound to, or you know, the absence of sound to sort of reintegrate and recreate? Because I think we all have an opportunity here, and perhaps sound can play a big part in that.
I think sound can play a huge part in that, and I agree with you. It's been a really interesting time, and it's the lens that you view it with and what you're willing to accept. Right? Are they gifts, you know, that have fallen in your path? I think the way that we were going, right? I think
no bueno.
Things like, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
no, I totally agree.
The emperor has no clothes. No bueno. Right.
Yeah. Picking convenience over, you know, other things, you know, really connecting. It's reconnecting with the world around us. It's reconnecting with, you know, the earth, the air, the water. I mean, we're seeing what's happening in the Colorado River and how the levels are dropping because of the power being generated. I mean, we really need to consider these things because the change starts from within, right? But when we realize that we are connected to all of it, we are connected to the animals, you know, when we are connected to the air, we're connected to the water, we're connected to the soil, we are all part of it. So Chief Seattle said, I read an excerpt from a book that was based on his speech that he gave to the government when they wanted to buy his land. this weekend. And basically it's, you know, we are a strand in the web. We did not pick the web, but we are a part of it. And what we do to one, we are doing to another. And I think that can be applied with maybe the new eyes that hopefully we're seeing the world with. What I'm doing to this person, I am ultimately doing to myself. So if my heart and my mind are not connected, if they're not connected, it puts out a different energy. It is putting out a different energy, right? So when we are saying things to people, right? Again, the words, vibration, the thoughts of vibration. Yeah, so, you know, choose them in a way that you are shaping the world that you would like to see, because it's a different energy when we do it. Are we blessing people with our words, or are we actually blessing them from our heart space?
Right,
you know,
difference. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful advice. I think we can all take to heart. I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said that whenever you feel anxiety or fear, you're living too far in the future, and if you feel depressed or sad, you're living in the past. But in the present moment, none of that exists. Like, you know, right here in that web of life that we're all connected. If we can just stay in that space and not go too far forward. You know, I'm also reminded of something my mom raised me with, this idea, and I don't know where it came from, but it was implanted in me, that life should be a series of experiences meant to be savored, not endured, right? So if we can take this idea that we're a river, you know, and the vibration is running through us, and we got to get the debris out, because everything's an inside job. Everything is an inside job, right? And that we can create these lives, these new lives, and in a new world collectively, because there's so much more at stake than just our day to day, even though that feels very real to us, and the moments in our lives feel very real. We are part of the collective whole. And I think that's just a tremendous takeaway from this.
I love that. I love that your mom said that, because again, it's how are you viewing the world? What lens are you using, right? And I mean, it's easy to say, well, you know, you should live in gratitude, you know, don't have any words or thoughts or actions that aren't kind, you know, because we all move and walk through the world, and situations fall into our path that are tests. But the thing, the magic about it is, you know what, every moment, a lot of people wait for the new year to say, well, you know, after the new year, I am going to make all of these changes. But every moment is an opportunity to make that change. So, you know, maybe you didn't do that an hour ago, but guess what? You're in a new space. So you can start it now.
And it's regenerating all the time. Time is regenerating, our cells are regenerating, everything is regenerating. So no time like the present to start anything, right?
I love that.
I think that idea is partly how I've moved. Like, I don't live a really traditional life in terms of there will be no gold pocket watch at the end of my journey. I don't think there's going to be a gold pocket watch at the end of yours either. You know, those days of that kind of thinking have morphed and finally caught up to the way that I've always lived my life. And I think the way that you live your life, I think that's brave. I think that's courageous. And I really commend you for doing that, because people follow that and they look at you and they say, wow, look at what Christina's doing with her life now, right? Because you know you're always growing and you're always taking those opportunities to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I really, chills again, I honor you at such a deep level. On your website, you have a quote from Tesla, the man, not the car, that says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, focus on energy, frequency, and vibration. So if people want to know more about those subjects, how can they work with you?
Well, there's two ways they can get in touch. So just launched a new website a couple of months ago. It's called bohemianbabewellness.com. And I have different sound videos on there, different interviews, information on wellness, and I'll be adding to it. It's just kind of been a non-stop process, but there is information on there currently. And then if they're interested, we did a film about sound, the one that you had mentioned, right, called Going Om. And, you know, we named it Going Om because I think, you know, when I think of home, It's not a building or a structure, it's a place. It's the connection with the divine. It's that connection, right, with yourself and the divine. And so that's why we named it Going Om, to, you know, encourage people about sound, a very novice exploration into the world of sound and silence and frequency and vibration and how these things are impacting us, because the World Health Organization recently stated that noise pollution is one of the biggest concerns that we're facing in terms of well-being.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know this myself. I'm very sensitive to sound, and there has been construction on my street during the entire pandemic, and now everyone's locked in their home, and all I hear is beep, 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 and construction. It's, you know, I don't want to end with that though. I want to go back to that space of you know, the good vibrations, if you will, and people being able to work with you should they choose to. I know you have some things you're doing in Virginia Beach here at the A.R.E. while you're still here. Is that something you can share?
Gosh, tomorrow is Friday. I'm like, what is tomorrow? We're doing a screening and then a sound bath after that.
Terrific. So, of your film, Going Om.
Of Going Om. So,
excellent. I will definitely try to.
People can get more information about it too. GoingOmFilm.com is the website. But it's really, and like you said, you know, it's really not necessarily what's happening to you, it's how you're responding to it.
Right.
So even with the vibration, when you say, okay, here it is, this is happening, you know, and it's like, okay, but, you know, refocus the attention. And there's all kinds of tools and techniques that you can adopt into your practice. And that's the thing, is it is a practice. It's a constant practice.
Well, and it's making me practice.
Yes.
Right? So, right, there you go. I found the purpose in that annoyance is that, you know, other than, you know, discovering noise canceling headphones.
Is that what you were using?
I was. What that makes me do is focus on my breath. And then when I hear the sound of my breath, right? Because I am very sensitive to sound, but I think a lot of people are, and then if we can start paying attention to how that shows up in our lives, and I'm sure your film would give us terrific information about it. So
thank you.
I so enjoyed talking to you and meeting you, and I wish you well on everything that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for allowing us to be here today.